And Ryan Day came out at Big Ten Media Day and said some interesting things about his defense. He said, quote, "We expect a top 10 defense at Ohio State heading into 2022. Which, if you're from Mars, or won't put those kind of stipulations on it, if you very loosely follow college football, you say that makes sense. Ohio State, I've seen them on some T-shirts walking around the street. I mean, I've seen them on TV a time or two. They're a good football team. Makes sense they would have a good defense, right? Well, to the more in-the-know college football fan like yourself, and I like to think myself, they were 31st in the country last year in terms of points per game they gave up. I mean, they were not great last year at times on defense. Now, after the Oregon game, they sort of got their act together a little bit more, but if you have any reservations about Ohio State, you know it comes on the defensive side. And Nick Schultz, one of our writers here at On3, does a great job, has a great article about this quote, actually, at on3.com, so go and check that out. But he just kind of distilled this down to what Ryan Day expects from this defense and why he expects it. And a part of that was the Jim Knowles scheme, which I think we need to talk about in addition. But even more so, I'm looking at the Ohio State defense and I'm saying the talent is there. It's not going to be a crazy difficult operation to get to a top 10 defense. Now, obviously, you have to put it into play and you have to ultimately, I guess, play great defense when the season actually becomes a reality. But in terms of the guys they got on this roster, I mean, they have the equipment, folks. It'd be one thing if the Ohio State defense was a 2012 Volkswagen you're driving around, but I mean, they have a 2022 Ferrari. Look at this defense. We have 7 4-stars, 3 5-stars, and 1 3-star in Tanner McAllister, who, I mean, we can be honest, he's a proven commodity here at the college football level. I mean, the guy's going to be a playmaker for Ohio State. There's no reason to doubt that. So if you want to dock him as a 3-star, do it. You'll regret it later. The point that I just made, 3 5-stars, 7 4-stars. It is not a question of talent on this roster. You have no reservations about the talent they have on this Ohio State defense. Can they put it together? That's the question. But there's no lack of ammunition for Ohio State. It's not like they have mismatches across the board. They got a bunch of guys that can play. And the reality is last year for Ohio State, I think part of it was complacency, and I think a lot of it was scheme. And that scheme is going to be rectified in 2022. Jim Knowles, we did a video actually on this with a little more depth to it, talking about his scheme. But he is the mad scientist of college football. He is going to have these guys ready to roll. Coming from Oklahoma State, where they had a really phenomenal defense a year ago, a top 10 defense a year ago, and they're going to wreak havoc. Even more so, they're going to be the aggressor. He talks about wanting to play offense on the defensive side of the football. What does that mean? That means they're bringing blitzes. That means they're stripping at the ball every single time they get to the ball carrier. That means they are playing with an intention to make something good happen on defense rather than just get a stop. They're trying to force turnovers. And so in addition to that, they're going to have speed on the field. Like we talked about in the video before, speed on the field is crucial. Why? Because it allows you to match up better with some of these spread teams. When they want to line you up and go 4 wide and 5 wide, whatever it is, Ohio State will have the personnel on the field to take care of that. And it won't be a question of can they play, because like I just said, you got 3 5-stars and 7 4-stars. And Tanner McAllister is a dude in his own right. So they're going to match up from a talent level. They're going to match up from a personnel level. They will never be out-schemed at Ohio State this coming year. I would be willing to bet my life savings on it. Jim Knowles will have this defense ready to roll. By that sense alone, they will be a more competitive program. Finally, Ohio State, when you watched them a season ago, it just didn't feel like the Buckeye defense. You know, I mean, I'm used to seeing the James Laurinaitis coming downhill. I'm used to seeing Denzel Ward locking up on the outside. I'm used to seeing that kind of tempo from the Ohio State defense. And last year, watching them at home against Oregon, just getting run down, through, over, around, whatever adjective you want to use, that's not Ohio State football. And so my feeling is heading into 2022, they've heard all this chatter in the offseason. They've heard all this talk about, well, yeah, they got ballers on offense. They got the Monstars pretty much lined up across the board, but can the defense hold up their end of the deal? Can the defense get Ohio State to the playoff? As a defensive guy for Ohio State, you're just sitting there, nodding your head, looking around, keeping your lips tight, and just waiting for fall. Because you know when fall comes and when they finally start playing games again, you got something to prove. And I think that's the key thing we need to look at with Ohio State. On defense, there is going to be a chip on the shoulder and a hungry stomach. And that's a dangerous thing for anybody that lines up across from this defense. They've got a lot of guys. They've got the scheme in place. But the urgency, the lack of complacency, that's what's going to get them to where they want to be defensively. Because like I mentioned to start this segment, there's probably some chest puffing you're doing if you're Ohio State at the start of 2021. I mean, you're playing defense for the Ohio State Buckeyes, one of the most storied programs in the country. There's some pride behind that. Now, when that pride turns to complacency, like I believe it may have a season to go, that's where you get your ankle bit. That's where you shoot yourself in the foot. And that's where you give up 30 points in 5 games. Because that's what they did a year ago. There was 5 different contests where they gave up 30 points or more. And so that complacency, no longer being present on the defensive side for Ohio State, will spell trouble for everybody else. So I'm excited to see it. I think if they get that piece right, and I expect they will get that piece right, there's good reason for optimism in Columbus. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.